The night Naomi Brooks knocked on room 1507, she had no idea she was about to change the life of one of America's wealthiest men. What started as a simple act of kindness, helping a broken man pick up a fallen book, would ignite a love story that would shake the foundations of high society. But when Ethan Cole's $3 billion secret is finally revealed, Naomi will face a choice that could either crown her as the ultimate Cinderella story or destroy her heart forever. Little does she know that the mother of the man she's falling for is already plotting to tear them apart, and the truth about his identity will leave her questioning everything she thought she knew about love, loyalty, and whether a janitor from the wrong side of town could ever truly belong in a billionaire's world. What happens next will prove that sometimes the most powerful force on earth isn't money. It's the courage to ask for help in your darkest hour. If you're watching this incredible love story unfold, hit that subscribe button and tell me what city you're watching from. I love connecting with viewers from around the world. The elevator hummed softly as it carried Naomi Brooks to the 15th floor of the private rehabilitation center. She shifted her cleaning cart slightly, the wheels squeaking against the polished floor. At 26, she had been working the night shift for 3 years now. Most people were asleep by the time she arrived, which suited her just fine. The quiet gave her time to think, to plan, to dream about the life she was building one paycheck at a time. The doors opened with a gentle chime, revealing a hallway lined with expensive artwork and soft lighting. This wasn't like the hospital where she used to work. Everything here screamed money, from the marble floors to the crystal light fixtures. The patients who stayed here didn't worry about insurance claims or payment plans. They just focused on getting better. Naomi pushed her cart down the hall, her sneakers silent against the floor. Room 1507 was her last stop tonight. She had cleaned every other room on the floor, each one empty except for perfectly made beds and fresh flowers. But this room was different. Someone lived here. She knocked softly on the doorframe. No answer. The room was dark, except for the city lights streaming through the tall windows. She could see the outline of a man sitting in a wheelchair, perfectly still, staring out at the glittering skyline below. "Excuse me," she called softly. "I just need to empty the trash and mop the bathroom. I'll be quick." The figure didn't move or respond. Naomi hesitated for a moment, then decided to work quietly around him. She had learned over the years that some patients preferred to be left alone with their thoughts. Pain did strange things to people. It made them retreat inside themselves, like wounded animals hiding in caves. She moved carefully through the room, emptying wastebaskets and wiping down surfaces. The man remained frozen by the window. In the dim light, she could see he was young, probably close to her own age. His shoulders were broad but tense, his dark hair slightly messy like he had been running his hands through it. When she reached the bathroom, she flicked on the light and began her routine. The marble countertops gleamed, the towels hung in perfect rows. Someone else had been taking care of this room during the day shift, but Naomi always did a thorough job regardless. Her mama had taught her that work worth doing was worth doing well. As she mopped the bathroom floor, she heard a sound from the bedroom, a sharp intake of breath, followed by a muffled curse. She peeked around the corner and saw the man reaching for something on the floor beside his wheelchair. A book had fallen, just out of his reach. Naomi watched him struggle for a moment, his face twisted with frustration. He stretched as far as he could, his fingers barely brushing the cover. Finally, he slammed his hand against the armrest of his chair and let out a sound of pure anger. "Let me get that for you," Naomi said, stepping forward. The man's head snapped up, his eyes wide with surprise and embarrassment. "I didn't know you were still here." "Sorry, I was just finishing up." She bent down and picked up the book, a thick biography of some business leader she had never heard of. "Here you go." Instead of taking the book, he stared at her face in the dim light. His eyes were a startling blue, even in the darkness. "You don't have to do that." "Do what?" She held the book out to him. "Pretend like this is normal." His voice was quiet but filled with bitterness. "Like I'm normal." Naomi studied his face for a moment. She had seen that look before, on her cousin Marcus when he came back from overseas with a prosthetic leg, on her neighbor Mrs. Peterson after her stroke. It was the look of someone who felt like half a person. "Are you dying?" she asked simply. The question caught him off guard. "What? Are you dying? Right now, tonight?" No, Then you're normal enough. She placed the book on the small table beside his chair. Normal people drop things all the time. Normal people need help sometimes. He was quiet for a long moment, studying her face. You don't know who I am, do you? Should I? Something shifted in his expression. Surprise, maybe relief. Most people do. Well, I don't watch much TV or read the celebrity magazines. I'm usually working or sleeping. She moved back toward her cart. I'm Naomi, by the way. Ethan. He paused as if he might say more, then didn't. Nice to meet you, Ethan. She began gathering her cleaning supplies. You need anything else before I go? Actually, his voice was so quiet she almost missed it. Could you stay for a minute? I know you probably have other things to do, but Naomi looked at him, really looked. His expensive pajamas couldn't hide the fact that he was scared. His perfect room couldn't hide the fact that he was alone. She had seen enough pain in her life to recognize it, even when it was dressed up in designer clothes. Sure. She moved a chair closer to his wheelchair and sat down. What's on your mind? Ethan stared out the window again, his hands gripped tightly in his lap. The doctors keep saying I'm making progress. They use words like encouraging and promising, but I can't feel anything below my waist. It's been 2 months, and I can't feel anything. What happened? She asked gently. Car accident. He stopped, seeming to choose his words carefully. I was driving too fast, hit a patch of ice and rolled the car 3 times. Stupid mistake that changed everything. Naomi nodded. She didn't offer empty words about how everything happened for a reason or how it could have been worse. She had learned that people in pain didn't need platitudes. They needed someone to sit with them in the darkness. Are you scared? She asked. The question hung in the air between them. Ethan's jaw worked silently for a moment before he answered. Terrified. The word came out like a confession. I wake up every morning hoping this is all a nightmare, that I'll be able to move my legs, feel my feet on the floor. But every morning, it's the same. Nothing. Have you said that out loud before? About being scared? He shook his head. Everyone expects me to be strong, positive. They want me to fight like some kind of warrior. His voice cracked slightly. But I don't feel like fighting. I feel like giving up. Naomi reached over and touched his hand gently. His fingers were cold, tense. Being scared doesn't make you weak. It makes you human. They sat in comfortable silence for a while, the city lights painting patterns on the walls around them. Finally, Naomi spoke. I had a brother, she said quietly. Marcus. He was born with cerebral palsy. Couldn't walk without braces, couldn't talk clearly. But you know what he used to say to me? Ethan looked at her, waiting. He used to say that walking wasn't about your legs, it was about moving forward one day at a time. Sometimes you crawl, sometimes you stumble, sometimes you fall down completely. But as long as you keep going, you're walking. That's a nice thought, Ethan said, but his voice was flat. But Marcus wasn't, he stopped himself. Wasn't what? Wasn't like you. Naomi's voice was still gentle, but there was something firmer underneath it. You think because you had something and lost it, it's harder than never having it at all? Ethan looked away, ashamed. Marcus died when he was 19, Naomi continued. Pneumonia. But in his 19 years, he lived more fully than most people do in 80. He didn't waste time feeling sorry for what he couldn't do. He focused on what he could do. I'm not Marcus, Ethan said quietly. No, you're not. You're Ethan, and Ethan is going to figure out his own way to walk again. The doctors don't even know if I'll ever... I'm not talking about your legs, Naomi interrupted. I'm talking about your life, your spirit, the part of you that makes you who you are. She leaned forward slightly. That part of you can learn to walk again, but only if you want it to. Ethan turned to look at her fully for the first time. In the soft light from the window, her face was gentle but determined. Her dark eyes held no pity, no false hope, just quiet strength. You really believe that? He asked. I believe in a lot of things other people think are impossible. She stood up and pushed her chair back where it belonged. I believe in second chances. I believe in the power of taking things one day at a time. And I believe that sometimes the strongest thing you can do is ask for help. And if I asked for your help? Naomi paused at her cleaning cart, considering his words. What kind of help? I don't know yet. But would you consider it? She looked at him, This broken, scared man who was trying so hard to be strong. Something in her chest tightened, a feeling she recognized but tried to push away. She barely knew him. He was a patient. She was staff. There were boundaries, rules, complications she couldn't even imagine. But there was something in his eyes that called to her. Maybe it was the loneliness she recognized because she felt it too. Maybe it was the vulnerability he was brave enough to show. Or maybe it was simply that he had asked, not demanded, not expected, but asked. "I'll help you walk again," she said finally, the words coming from somewhere deeper than logic. "Not your legs, that's for the doctors and therapists to figure out, but the rest of you, the part that's forgotten how to hope?" She nodded slowly. "Yeah, I'll help with that." Ethan stared at her, his expression unreadable. "You don't even know me." "I know enough." She began pushing her cart toward the door. "I know you're scared but still breathing. I know you're lost but still looking for a way forward. I know you're hurting but still capable of asking for help." She paused at the doorway. "That's a good start. When do we begin?" "We already have," Naomi smiled, the first real smile she had given anyone in weeks. "See you tomorrow night, Ethan." As she walked away, she heard his voice call after her, softer now, less desperate but somehow more real. "Thank you." The elevator doors closed, carrying her down toward the lobby and the cold night air outside. But for the first time in months, Naomi felt warm. She had made a promise tonight, one she wasn't entirely sure she could keep. But she would try. For reasons she couldn't explain and didn't want to examine too closely, she would try. Behind her 15 floors up, Ethan sat in the darkness and felt something he hadn't experienced since the accident, the faintest flicker of hope. The morning sun streamed through the tall windows of the physical therapy room, casting long rectangles of golden light across the padded mats and exercise equipment. Ethan had been awake since 5 a.m., staring at the ceiling and thinking about the woman who had sat with him in the darkness just hours before. Naomi. Her name rolled around in his mind like a prayer or a promise. She had looked at him without pity, spoken to him without condescension, and somehow made him feel human again, for the first time in months. Dar Allen Reeves entered the room right on schedule at 9 a.m., clipboard in hand and reading glasses perched on his nose. At 62, he had been working with spinal injury patients for over 20 years, and his approach was refreshingly straightforward. "Good morning, Ethan. How are you feeling today?" "Different," Ethan answered honestly. Dr. Reeves looked up from his notes, eyebrows raised slightly. "Different how?" "More awake, I guess. Like, maybe I want to try harder today." The doctor studied his patient carefully. Ethan's posture in his wheelchair was straighter than it had been in weeks. His eyes were clearer, more focused. Whatever had happened since their last session, it was a positive change. "Well, that's encouraging. Any particular reason for this shift in attitude?" Ethan hesitated. How could he explain that a 5-minute conversation with a janitor had done more for his spirit than 2 months of professional counseling? "I had a good conversation with someone last night. Made me think about things differently." "Family member?" "No, just someone who works here. She helped me see that maybe I've been focusing on the wrong things." Dr. Reeves made a note on his clipboard. "I'd like to meet this person if she's had such a positive effect on your outlook." "Actually," Ethan said, feeling suddenly bold, "I was wondering if she could be here during therapy sometimes, for moral support." "That's not typically how we do things here, Ethan. Our therapy sessions are private, professional. I know. But this isn't typical, is it? Nothing about this situation is typical." Ethan's voice grew stronger as he spoke. "You've been trying to motivate me for weeks with limited success. This person managed to do it in one conversation. Maybe we should consider that she might be able to help in ways that traditional therapy can't." Dr. Reeves was quiet for a long moment, considering. He had seen enough patients over the years to know that motivation was often the biggest obstacle to recovery. If this staff member could provide the emotional support that Ethan clearly needed, it might be worth exploring. "What's her name?" "Naomi Brooks. She works the night shift cleaning." "I'll need to speak with her supervisor, make sure she's comfortable with the arrangement, and establish some clear boundaries. This would be highly unusual. But not impossible. Not impossible. But understand, Ethan, there are no shortcuts to recovery. Having a cheerleader doesn't change the fact that this is going to be the hardest work. of your life. Your injury was severe. The chances of regaining full mobility are—" He paused, choosing his words carefully. "Limited. I understand. Do you? Because hope is a powerful thing, but false hope can be devastating. I won't be part of setting you up for disappointment." Ethan met the doctor's gaze steadily. "She didn't promise me I'd walk again. She promised to help me learn how to walk through this, emotionally, mentally. I think there's a difference." Dr. Reeves nodded slowly. "There is. And that difference might make all the difference." He made another note. "I'll talk to Ms. Brooks and see if we can arrange something. In the meantime, let's see if this new attitude translates into physical effort." The therapy session that followed was unlike any they had attempted before. Ethan pushed himself harder, complained less, and maintained focus even when the exercises became painful. His determination was obvious, infectious even. "What did this woman say to you?" Dr. Reeves asked as they finished up. "She told me about her brother, and she asked me if I was dying." "Are you?" "No," Ethan said firmly. "No, I'm not." That afternoon, Naomi arrived at work early to find a message waiting for her from the floor supervisor. Dr. Reeves wanted to speak with her about patient support services. Her stomach clenched with worry as she made her way to his office. Had she overstepped last night? Said something inappropriate? Maybe patients weren't supposed to have personal conversations with the cleaning staff. Maybe she had gotten herself in trouble by trying to help. Dr. Reeves was a kind-looking man with gentle eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses. He gestured for her to sit in the chair across from his desk. "Ms. Brooks, thank you for coming in early. I wanted to talk to you about Ethan Cole in room 1507. Is he okay? Did something happen?" "On the contrary, something very positive happened. He's shown more motivation today than in the entire 2 months he's been here. He credits a conversation with you for this change." Relief flooded through her. "Oh, good. He seemed sad last night. I just tried to listen." "He's asked if you might be present during some of his therapy sessions, as moral support." Naomi blinked in surprise. "Me? But I clean rooms. I don't know anything about physical therapy or medicine." "No, but you apparently know something about healing people's spirits. And sometimes, that's just as important as healing their bodies." Dr. Reeves leaned forward slightly. "Would you be interested in something like this? It would be entirely voluntary, on your own time, and there would be strict boundaries to maintain." "What kind of boundaries?" "Professional ones. You would be there as emotional support only, not as a friend, not as family, but as a caring professional who wants to see a patient succeed. No personal relationship, no contact outside of scheduled sessions, no promises you can't keep." Naomi felt her heart sink a little at those words, though she wasn't sure why. "Of course. I understand. The other thing you need to know is that Ethan's case is complicated. His injury was severe. The likelihood of him regaining full mobility is very small. He may never walk independently again. If you're going to be part of his support system, you need to be prepared for that reality." "Has anyone told him that?" "Not in so many words. We focus on what's possible, however small those possibilities might be." Naomi nodded slowly. "He's going to need someone who believes in those small possibilities." "Exactly. So you'll consider it?" "Yes," she said without hesitation. "When do we start?" "Tomorrow afternoon, 2 o'clock. And Ms. Brooks?" Dr. Reeves smiled. "Thank you. Sometimes healing comes from the most unexpected places." The next day, Naomi changed out of her work clothes into a simple dress and cardigan before heading to the therapy room. She had no idea what to expect, but she wanted to look presentable for whatever role she was about to play in Ethan's recovery. She found him already working with Dr. Reeves, sweat beading on his forehead as he attempted to maintain his balance in a specialized standing frame. The device held him upright, supporting most of his weight, but she could see the intense concentration on his face as he tried to engage whatever muscles still responded to his commands. "How long has he been at this?" she asked Dr. Reeves quietly. 20 minutes. Yesterday he could only manage 5 before getting frustrated." They watched as Ethan shifted his weight slightly, his knuckles white as he gripped the parallel bars on either side of the frame. His legs hung limp beneath him, but his upper body was fighting with everything it had. "You're doing great," Naomi called out. "Don't forget to breathe." Ethan's head turned toward her voice, and she saw surprise and relief flash across his face. "You came. I said I would." Something about her presence changed the energy in the room. Ethan's shoulders relaxed slightly, and his breathing became more controlled. He managed to stay in the standing frame for another 5 minutes before Dr. Reeves helped him back into his wheelchair. "That was your best session yet," the doctor observed. It felt different. Ethan looked at Naomi. "Having you here, it felt like maybe this was worth doing." "It is worth doing," she said simply. "Every minute of it." As Dr. Reeves packed up his equipment, Naomi moved closer to Ethan's wheelchair. Up close, in the bright afternoon light, she could see the exhaustion in his face, but also something that hadn't been there before: determination. "How do you feel?" she asked. "Tired, sore, but—" He paused, searching for the right words. "Not hopeless. For the first time in months, I don't feel hopeless." "That's a start." "Naomi," he said quietly, "I need to tell you something. Yesterday, when you asked if you knew who Q-Sorts, I was—" "Ethan," Dr. Reeves interrupted, "we need to schedule your next session." The moment broke, and whatever Ethan had been about to say was lost, but Naomi noticed the way his expression had changed, guilty, almost nervous. What was he trying to tell her? "Same time tomorrow?" Dr. Reeves asked. "Yes," Ethan and Naomi said simultaneously, then looked at each other and smiled. As Naomi walked back to begin her regular shift, she found herself humming softly. She had just committed to spending her afternoons watching a man struggle to stand up. She would be unpaid, unappreciated by most people, and probably exhausted from the extra hours. So why did she feel happier than she had in months? Because for the first time in a long time she felt useful, not just useful, needed. Ethan needed her in a way that had nothing to do with cleaning his room or emptying his trash. He needed her to believe in him when he couldn't believe in himself. And maybe, if she was being completely honest, she needed him too. She needed to feel like she was making a difference in someone's life, like her presence mattered for reasons that went deeper than the work she could do with her hands. As she pushed her cart down the hallway that night, Naomi made herself a promise. She would help Ethan learn to walk again, not with his legs, but with his heart. She would be the voice that reminded him he was still whole, still valuable, still capable of hope. She just hadn't expected it to feel so much like falling in love. The thought stopped her cold in the middle of the hallway. Love? She barely knew him. He was a patient. She was staff. There were rules, boundaries, complications she couldn't even begin to imagine. But as she stood there in the quiet corridor, she couldn't shake the memory of his blue eyes looking at her with such gratitude, such trust. She couldn't forget the way his voice had changed when she walked into that therapy room. Stronger, steadier, more alive. Maybe it wasn't love. Maybe it was just compassion or empathy or the satisfaction of helping someone in need. But as she finished her shift and drove home through the early morning darkness, Naomi couldn't stop thinking about tomorrow afternoon, about standing in that therapy room, watching Ethan fight to reclaim his life one painful minute at a time. And she couldn't stop looking forward to the moment when he would turn to look for her, needing her presence to give him strength. Whatever this feeling was, it was growing. And despite all the rational reasons she could think of to be careful, to maintain distance, to protect herself, she didn't want it to stop. 3 weeks had passed since Naomi began joining Ethan's therapy sessions. The routine had become as natural as breathing. She would arrive each afternoon at 2 o'clock, change into comfortable clothes, and spend an hour watching him push his body to its limits. Some days were better than others. On good days, Ethan could maintain his balance in the standing frame for 30 minutes. He could transfer from his wheelchair to the exercise mat with minimal assistance. His arms grew stronger, his core more stable. Dr. Reeves marked these improvements in his careful notes, pleased with the steady progress. On bad days, everything hurt. Ethan's muscles would spasm without warning. His shoulders would ache from supporting his weight. Exhaustion would hit him like a wall, leaving him frustrated and angry at his body's limitations. But regardless of whether it was a good day or a bad day, Naomi was there. She learned to read his moods in the set of his shoulders, the line of his jaw. When he was pushing too hard, she would remind him to breathe. When he wanted to quit, she would tell him stories about her family, her neighborhood, anything to distract him from the pain. "Tell me about your cousin again," he said one afternoon as he struggled through arm exercises designed to build the strength he would need for walking aids. "Lena, she's 8 years older than me, thinks she knows everything." Naomi smiled from her chair nearby. "When I was little and my mama was working double shifts, Lena would pick me up from school. She always had opinions about my clothes, my hair, my friends." "Does she still?" "Oh yeah. Last week she told me I need to find a nice man and settle down. Says I'm wasting my youth cleaning up after other people." Ethan paused in his exercise, looking at her with an expression she couldn't quite read. "What do you tell her?" "I tell her I'm not wasting anything. I'm building something. Every day I work, every dollar I save, every person I help, it's all building toward something better." "What's better?" Naomi was quiet for a moment, watching him complete another repetition. "I want to go back to school someday, maybe become a nurse or a teacher. I want to own my own little house with a garden, nothing fancy, just mine." She looked out the window at the city skyline. "And maybe Lena's right about finding someone to share it with." "You don't date?" The question was casual, but Naomi sensed something deeper behind it. "Not much. Hard to meet people when you work nights and sleep days. Plus, most guys I meet don't understand why I'm happy doing what I do. They think I should want more." "Should you?" "Wanting more and being ungrateful for what you have are two different things," she said firmly. "I have a job, a place to live, family who loves me. That's more than a lot of people have." Dr. Reeves returned from taking a phone call, and the conversation shifted back to therapy. But Ethan found himself thinking about Naomi's words for the rest of the session. She had so little compared to what he had grown up with, yet she radiated contentment in a way he had never felt, even before his accident. After therapy, as Dr. Reeves packed up his equipment, Ethan made a decision. "Naomi, would you like to have dinner with me tonight?" "Janitor, my room, I mean. The food here is actually pretty good." She hesitated, glancing at Dr. Reeves. The doctor had made the boundaries clear, professional relationship only. "I think that would be fine," Dr. Reeves said carefully, "as long as you both understand that this is still part of the therapeutic relationship, nothing more." "Of course," Ethan said quickly. I'd like the company, and I want to hear more about your plans for the future." That evening, Naomi finished her regular cleaning duties early and returned to Ethan's room at 7 o'clock. She had changed into a simple blue dress, the nicest thing she owned that wasn't her church clothes. Ethan had ordered dinner from a restaurant she had never heard of, though he didn't mention that it was one of the most expensive places in the city. To her, it was just really good food. Salmon with some kind of sauce, vegetables that tasted like they had been grown in heaven, and bread that melted in her mouth. "This is delicious," she said, genuinely amazed. "Hospital food is really improved." Ethan smiled, not correcting her assumption. "I'm glad you like it." They talked about everything and nothing, her childhood in the small apartment she shared with her mother, his memories of learning to drive, her dreams of traveling someday, his love of books. The conversation flowed easily, naturally, like they had known each other for years instead of weeks. "What did you do before the accident?" Naomi asked as they finished eating. Ethan's fork paused halfway to his mouth. This was the question he had been dreading, the one that would change everything between them. He had been putting it off for weeks, telling himself he was protecting what they had built. But the truth was, he was protecting himself from the look he knew would cross her face when she learned who he really was. "I worked in business," he said vaguely. "What kind of business?" "Investment, finance, boring stuff, really." Naomi nodded, accepting the non-answer. "Did you like it?" "I thought I did. Now I'm not sure I ever really thought about it. It was just what I was supposed to do." He set down his fork and looked at her directly. "Naomi, there's something I need to tell you." Before he could continue, there was a knock at the door. A well-dressed woman in her 50s entered without waiting for permission, her heels clicking authoritatively on the polished floor. "Ethan, darling, I brought those files you—" She stopped mid-sentence, noticing Naomi for the first time. "Oh, I didn't realize you had company." Ethan's face went pale. "Mom, I wasn't expecting you tonight." Margaret Cole was the kind of woman who commanded attention without trying. Her silver hair was perfectly styled, her designer suit impeccable, her jewelry understated but expensive. She looked at Naomi with polite curiosity that didn't quite hide her confusion about why her son was having dinner with someone who was clearly not from their social circle. "This is Naomi Brooks," Ethan said reluctantly. "She's been helping with my therapy. Naomi, this is my mother, Margaret Cole." Naomi stood quickly, suddenly aware of how out of place she must look in this expensive room. "Nice to meet you, Mrs. Cole." "Ms. Brooks?" Margaret's smile was warm but measuring. "How lovely that you've been helping Ethan. Are you one of the therapists here?" "No, ma'am, I work nights cleaning the floors, but I've been coming to Ethan's therapy sessions for moral support." Something shifted in Margaret's expression, surprise, perhaps concern. "How thoughtful of you to volunteer your time like that." The word volunteer hung in the air, and Naomi suddenly realized how her presence here might look to someone like Mrs. Cole. Like charity. Like she was some do-gooder trying to make herself feel important by helping the poor injured rich boy. "I should go," Naomi said quietly, reaching for her purse. "It's getting late and I have work to do." "Naomi, wait," Ethan started. "No, it's fine. Your mother probably wants to visit with you." She looked at Margaret politely. "It was nice meeting you, Mrs. Cole." She was gone before either of them could stop her. Margaret watched her son's face as the door closed, noting the frustration and disappointment there. "She seems very sweet, darling." "She is? How long has this been going on?" "It's not going on, Mom. She's been helping with my therapy, that's all." Margaret sat down in the chair Naomi had vacated, choosing her words carefully. "Ethan, I can see that you've grown fond of her, and I'm sure she's a lovely girl. But you need to be careful about the signals you're sending." "What do you mean?" "She's a janitor, sweetheart. She gestured around the expensive room at the remnants of their costly dinner. "You're you. She may not understand the difference, but other people will. And when they do, it could be very painful for her." "You think I'm leading her on." "I think you're lonely and grateful, and those are dangerous emotions. They can make us believe things that aren't real." Margaret reached over and touched his hand gently. "I'm not saying she isn't a good person. I'm sure she is. But you need to ask yourself, are you interested in her because of who she is or because of how she makes you feel about yourself?" Ethan stared out the window at the city lights, his mother's words settling heavily in his chest. "Does it matter?" "To her it does. If she's developing feelings for you, and from what I just witnessed, I think she might be, then she deserves honesty. About who you are, about what your life is really like, about whether this relationship has any chance of being real." "And what if I told her the truth? What then?" Margaret was quiet for a long moment. "Then you'd find out whether she cares about Ethan the person, or Ethan Cole the billionaire." After his mother left, Ethan sat alone in his room, her words echoing in his mind. He had been a coward, he realized. For weeks he had been living in a fantasy where he was just a regular man recovering from an injury, and she was just a kind woman who cared about him. But that wasn't reality. Reality was that he was worth more money than Naomi would see in 10 lifetimes. Reality was that his family owned companies, foundations, properties around the world. Reality was that even his medical care here cost more per day than she made in a month. And reality was that he had been lying to her from the beginning. The next afternoon, Naomi almost didn't show up for therapy. She had spent the night replaying every moment of dinner, every word of her conversation with Mrs. Cole. The woman had been perfectly polite, but Naomi wasn't stupid. She had seen the assessment in those intelligent eyes, felt the subtle judgment in that warm smile. She was a janitor having dinner with a patient. It was inappropriate at best, pathetic at worst. But as 2 o'clock approached, she found herself changing clothes and heading to the therapy room anyway. Whatever Mrs. Cole thought, whatever boundaries she had crossed, Ethan still needed her support, and she had made him a promise. She arrived to find Ethan already working with Dr. Reeves, but something was different. The easy rapport they had built over the past weeks was gone, replaced by tension so thick she could feel it from across the room. "Sorry I'm late," she said, taking her usual seat. Ethan glanced at her briefly, then focused intently on his exercises. "You're not late." Dr. Reeves looked between them, sensing the change in dynamic. "Is everything all right?" Fine, Ethan said curtly, struggling with a balance exercise that he had mastered weeks ago. His concentration was shot, his movements jerky and uncertain. Maybe you need a break, Naomi suggested gently. Maybe I need to focus. His voice was sharper than he intended. The session continued in uncomfortable silence. Ethan pushed himself harder than usual, his frustration obvious in every strained muscle, every labored breath. When he nearly fell during a transfer exercise, Dr. Reeves called a halt. That's enough for today. We'll pick up tomorrow when you're in a better headspace. After the doctor left, Ethan and Naomi sat in awkward silence. Finally, she spoke. Did I do something wrong last night? No. He wouldn't look at her. You didn't do anything wrong. Then why do I feel like I did? Ethan finally met her eyes, and she saw pain there that had nothing to do with his physical injury. My mother thinks I'm taking advantage of you. Taking advantage how? By letting you waste your time here, by letting you care about someone who... He stopped, then started again. By not being honest about who I am. Naomi felt her heart begin to race. What aren't you telling me? This was it. The moment that would change everything between them, one way or another. Ethan took a deep breath and made his choice. My name is Ethan Cole. As in Cole Industries, Cole Foundation, Cole Media Group. He watched her face carefully. I'm not just some guy who got hurt in a car accident, Naomi. I'm worth about $3 billion. The words hit her like a physical blow. She stared at him, processing what he had just said. $3 billion. She couldn't even imagine that much money. She struggled to find words. You're him, the one who's always in the business magazines at the grocery store checkout. Yeah. The one who owns half the companies in Silicon Valley. About a quarter, actually, but yeah. Naomi stood up abruptly, pacing to the window. Everything made sense now. The expensive room, the restaurant food, the way his mother had looked at her. She wasn't some kind volunteer helping a fellow human being. She was a charity case being handled by one of the richest men in the world. Why didn't you tell me? Because I knew this would happen. Ethan's voice was quiet, defeated. I knew you'd look at me differently. I knew everything between us would change. Everything between us? She turned to face him. What exactly is between us, Ethan? Because I thought we were... I don't know what I thought we were. But apparently I was wrong. You weren't wrong. Then why lie? Why spend weeks pretending to be someone you're not? Because for the first time in my life, someone looked at me and saw just... me. Not my bank account, not my family name, not what I could do for them. Just me. His voice cracked slightly. Do you have any idea how rare that is? How precious? Naomi felt tears threatening, but she forced them back. So this was all some kind of experiment? Rich boy plays pretend with the poor girl to see what it feels like to be normal? No, God, no, it wasn't like that. Then what was it like? Because from where I'm sitting, it looks like you've been lying to me from the moment we met. I was protecting what we had. We didn't have anything. The words exploded out of her, months of careful boundaries and professional restraint finally breaking. You're a patient. I'm staff. You live in a world I can't even imagine. I clean floors for a living. There is no we, Ethan. There never was. She grabbed her purse and headed for the door, then stopped and turned back. You want to know the really sad part? I was falling for you. Not Ethan Cole the billionaire, not the guy in the magazines, just the man who was scared and broken and brave enough to ask for help. She wiped at her eyes angrily. Turns out that man doesn't exist. Naomi, please. But she was already gone, leaving Ethan alone with the truth he had finally told and the relationship he had destroyed by trying to protect it. That night, Naomi went through her cleaning routine like a robot. Empty the trash, wipe the surfaces, mop the floors. Simple tasks that didn't require thinking because thinking hurt too much. She had been such a fool. Of course, someone like Ethan wouldn't be interested in someone like her under normal circumstances. She was the help, the staff, the person who cleaned up messes so that important people didn't have to think about them. When she reached room 1507, she found a note taped to the door. Naomi, I know you probably don't want to see me right now, but please read this. You said the man you were falling for doesn't exist. You're wrong. He's the only part of me that does exist. Everything else, the money, the companies, the life I had before, That's what isn't real. That's what I was hiding from. I never meant to hurt you. I never meant to lie. I just wanted to be the man you thought I was for as long as possible. I understand if you can't forgive me. I understand if you never want to see me again. But please know that these past few weeks with you have been the realest thing in my life. You helped me learn to walk again, Naomi. Not with my legs, you were right, that's for the doctors, but with my heart. And no matter what happens now, I'll always be grateful for that. Ethan. Naomi crumpled the note in her fist, then smoothed it out and read it again. And again. Then she folded it carefully and put it in her pocket, finished cleaning the rest of the floor, and went home to cry. 2 days passed before Naomi saw Ethan again. She had switched her schedule around, asking to cover different floors, different shifts, anything to avoid room 1507. But Dr. Reeves found her on Thursday afternoon as she was restocking supply closets. "Ms. Brooks, could I speak with you for a moment?" Her stomach dropped. "Is this about Ethan? Because I think our arrangement should probably end. It's gotten too complicated." "That's exactly what I want to talk to you about." Dr. Reeves gestured toward his office. "Please." Reluctantly, she followed him down the hall and took the same seat she had occupied weeks ago when this all began. "Ethan hasn't participated in therapy for 3 days," Dr. Reeves said without preamble. "He shows up, goes through the motions, but his heart isn't in it. Whatever progress we made over the past month is disappearing fast." "I'm sorry to hear that." "Are you?" "Because you're the only person who's been able to motivate him since he arrived here. And now, for some reason, you won't even enter his room." Naomi shifted uncomfortably. "It's complicated, Dr. Reeves." "I'm sure it is. But let me tell you what's not complicated. Ethan's physical recovery depends on his emotional state, and right now, his emotional state is worse than it was when he first arrived. What do you want me to do about it? I want you to tell me what happened, because 3 days ago, you two were working together beautifully. Today, he's giving up, and you're hiding from him." Naomi was quiet for a long moment, staring at her hands folded in her lap. Finally, she spoke. "He lied to me. About who he is, about his life. I found out he's not just some regular guy who got hurt in an accident. She struggled with the words. "He's Ethan Cole, the billionaire." Dr. Reeves leaned back in his chair, understanding dawning in his expression. "Ah, you knew?" "Of course I knew. He's been a patient here for months, Ms. Brooks, but I take it you didn't know? He let me think he was just normal, like me." The words came out bitter. "I guess it was entertaining for him, seeing how the other half lives." "Is that really what you think?" "I don't know what to think anymore." Dr. Reeves was quiet for a moment, choosing his words carefully. "Ms. Brooks, I've been working with patients for over 20 years. I've seen how money and status affect people's recovery. Usually, wealthy patients expect special treatment. They expect their problems to be solved faster, easier, with less effort on their part. They expect miracles because they're used to buying their way out of difficulties. And Ethan has never once acted that way. From the day he arrived, he's been willing to work harder than most patients I see. He follows instructions, pushes through pain, never complains about the slow pace of recovery. The only time I've seen him truly motivated, truly hopeful, was when you started coming to his sessions." Naomi felt tears threatening again. "But he lied to me." "Did he? Or did he just not tell you something that he knew would change how you saw him?" "That's the same thing." "Is it?" Dr. Reeves leaned forward. "Let me ask you this. If you had known from the beginning that he was worth billions of dollars, would you have treated him the same way?" The question hung in the air between them. Naomi wanted to say yes, of course she would have, but she knew in her heart that wasn't true. If she had known who he really was, she would have been intimidated, careful, professional to the point of coldness. She never would have sat with him that first night, never would have made him laugh, never would have fallen for him. "That's what I thought," Dr. Reeves said gently. "Ms. Brooks, I can't tell you what to do about your personal feelings. That's between you and Ethan. But I can tell you that he needs your help. Not because he's rich, not because he's famous, but because he's a human being who's lost hope. And you're the only person who's been able to give it back to him." After leaving Dr. Reeves's office, Naomi found herself walking aimlessly through the hospital corridors. Her mind was a jumble of confusion, anger, and something else she didn't want to name. Hurt. She was hurt. But was she hurt because he had lied, or because learning the truth made her realize how impossible anything real between them would be? She thought about his note, still folded in her pocket. "You helped me learn to walk again, not with my legs, with my heart." Was it possible that she had been wrong, that his feelings for her were real, even if his identity had been hidden? Her. Phone buzzed with a text from Lena. "Haven't heard from you in days. You okay?" Without thinking, Naomi found herself calling her cousin. "Girl, where have you been?" Lena's voice was warm and familiar. I was starting to worry. "Lena, can I ask you something?" "Of course. What's wrong? You sound upset." If someone you cared about lied to you about something important, but they did it because they were afraid you'd treat them differently if you knew the truth, would you forgive them? Depends. How important and how different? Naomi took a deep breath. Like billionaire different. There was a long pause. "Girl, what are you talking about?" "There's this man. I've been helping with his physical therapy. I thought he was just regular, but it turns out he's one of the richest people in the world, and he never told me." "Wait, hold up. You're helping with someone's therapy? Since when do you do that?" "It's complicated." "Naomi Marie Brooks, you better start from the beginning and tell me everything." So she did. She told Lena about that first night in Ethan's room, about watching him struggle and offering to help, about the therapy sessions, the dinners, the way he made her feel seen and valued, about meeting his mother and realizing she didn't belong in his world, about learning who he really was and feeling like everything between them had been a lie. When she finished, Lena was quiet for a long time. "You still there?" Naomi asked. "I'm here. I'm just trying to figure out if you're upset because he's rich or because you think he was playing with you." "Both? Neither?" "I don't know, Lena. I'm so confused." "Okay, let me ask you this. Before you found out about the money, how did he treat you?" "Like I mattered. Like my opinions were important. Like he was lucky to have me there." "And after you found out?" "I didn't give him a chance to treat me anyway. I ran." So you're mad at him for something he might do, not something he actually did." Naomi felt a flash of irritation. "That's not fair." "Isn't it?" "Honey, I love you, but you've got a habit of protecting yourself from getting hurt by pushing people away before they can disappoint you." "This is different." "Is it? Or are you just scared that if you let yourself care about someone who has so much more than you do, you'll get your heart broken when he realizes you're not good enough for his world?" The words hit like a physical blow because they were true. That was exactly what she was afraid of. That was why his mother's polite assessment had hurt so much. That was why learning about his wealth had felt like such a betrayal. "What if I'm not good enough?" she whispered. "Good enough for what? To care about someone? To be cared about?" "Naomi, listen to me. Your worth isn't determined by your bank account or your job title. It's determined by who you are as a person, and you are one of the best people I know." "But Lena," "But nothing. If this man has feelings for you, it's because he sees something in you that's worth caring about. Don't you think he's smart enough to know what he wants?" After hanging up with Lena, Naomi sat in her car in the hospital parking lot, thinking. Maybe her cousin was right. Maybe she had been so afraid of being rejected that she had rejected him first. But even if that was true, how could they possibly make it work? They came from different worlds, had different backgrounds, different expectations. His mother had made that clear without saying a word. Her phone buzzed with another text, this one from an unknown number. "This is Margaret Cole. Could we meet for coffee?" "I think we should talk." Naomi stared at the message for a long time before responding. "When?" The coffee shop Margaret had suggested was in an upscale part of town that Naomi rarely visited. She arrived 15 minutes early, ordered a simple black coffee, and chose a table in the corner where she could see the door. Margaret arrived precisely on time, looking elegant even in casual clothes. She spotted Naomi immediately and approached with a warm smile that seemed more genuine than their first meeting. "Thank you for agreeing to see me," Margaret said, settling into the chair across from her. "I know this must be awkward." "A little," Naomi admitted. Margaret ordered tea and was quiet for a moment, studying Naomi's face. My son is miserable. I'm sorry to hear that. Are you? Because you're the only person who can fix it. Naomi felt a flash of anger. I'm not responsible for your son's happiness, Mrs. Cole. No, you're not, but you are responsible for your own, and I think you're making yourself miserable too. Why did you want to meet with me? Margaret leaned forward slightly. Because I made a mistake the other night. I let my protective instincts override my judgment, and I said things that probably contributed to this situation. What kind of things? I warned Ethan to be careful about the signals he was sending you. I suggested that your feelings might not be based on reality. Margaret's expression was regretful. I was wrong. Naomi blinked in surprise. You were? I've spent the last few days watching my son withdraw from everyone and everything that matters to him. I've seen him refuse therapy, stop eating, barely speak to anyone, and I realize that whatever is between you two, it's real for him. More real than anything has been in years. But we're so different, are you? Because from what I can see, you're both kind people who work hard and care about others. You both have strong principles and gentle hearts. You both value honesty and loyalty. Margaret smiled. The fact that you have different bank account balances seems rather trivial compared to all of that. Naomi stared into her coffee cup. He lied to me about who he was. Did he lie, or did he just not volunteer information he knew would change your relationship? It's the same thing. Is it? If someone asked you directly if you were a janitor, would you lie and say no? Of course not. But if you were interested in someone and you thought they might judge you based on your job, might you avoid bringing it up until you knew them better? Naomi was quiet, considering. My son has been judged by his bank account his entire life, Margaret continued. Every friendship, every romantic relationship, every interaction has been colored by what he could provide rather than who he is. Can you imagine how exhausting that must be? But I would never, wouldn't you? If you had known from the beginning that he was worth billions, would you have sat with him that first night? Would you have treated him like just another person who needed comfort? The question hung between them, and Naomi knew the answer even if she didn't want to admit it. He's a good man, Naomi. Underneath all the money and the family name, he's just a scared, lonely person who found someone who saw him for who he really is. Don't punish him for being afraid to lose that. Margaret reached across the table and touched Naomi's hand gently. And don't punish yourself for caring about someone who can afford to care for you in return. After Margaret left, Naomi sat alone in the coffee shop for another hour, thinking about everything that had been said. Maybe she had been unfair. Maybe she had been so afraid of being hurt that she had hurt him first. But even if that was true, how could they move forward? The gap between their worlds seemed impossible to bridge. Her phone rang, interrupting her thoughts. Dr. Reeves. Ms. Brooks, I'm sorry to bother you, but I think you should know. Ethan has stopped participating in therapy altogether. He says he's done trying. Naomi's heart clenched. What does that mean? It means if something doesn't change soon, he's going to lose what progress he's made. And more than that, I think he's going to lose hope completely. After hanging up, Naomi sat in her car for a long time, staring at the hospital building in the distance. She thought about the man she had met that first night, broken, scared, but still fighting. She thought about the progress he had made, the hope that had grown in his eyes over the weeks they had worked together. She thought about the promise she had made. I'll help you walk again. Not with his legs, with his heart. Maybe it was time to keep that promise, regardless of what it might cost her. Maybe it was time to choose love over fear. Naomi stood outside room 1507 for 10 minutes before she found the courage to knock. Her heart was beating so fast she could hear it in her ears. She had rehearsed what she wanted to say during the entire drive to the hospital, but now that she was here, every word had fled from her mind. Come in. Ethan's voice came through the door, flat and lifeless. She pushed the door open and found him sitting in his wheelchair by the window, exactly as she had that first night weeks ago, but everything about him was different now. His shoulders were slumped, his face pale and drawn. He looked like he had given up on everything. Hi, she said softly. He turned toward her, and she saw surprise flash across his features before it was replaced by something that looked like pain. Naomi. He said her name like he wasn't sure she was real. What are you doing here? Dr. Reeves said you stopped going to therapy. Did he send you? No, I came because, she took a deep breath, because I made you a promise, and I don't break my promises. Ethan's jaw tightened. You don't owe me anything. I lied to you. I understand why you don't want to see me. Do you? She moved closer, choosing her words carefully. Because I'm not sure I understand it myself anymore. He looked at her warily, as if afraid to hope. What do you mean? Naomi pulled a chair up to his wheelchair and sat down, just like she had that first night. I mean, I've been thinking a lot about what happened, about what you told me and how I reacted. Naomi, let me finish, please. She looked directly into his eyes. You were right about one thing. If I had known who you were from the beginning, I would have treated you differently. I would have been professional and distant and careful. I never would have sat with you that first night when you were scared. I never would have gotten to know the real you. The real me. The man who says thank you when someone brings him coffee. The man who reads biographies and worries about his future. The man who was brave enough to admit he was terrified. Her voice grew stronger. The man who made me feel like I mattered, like my presence made a difference in his life. Ethan was quiet, listening. I was angry when I found out about the money, she continued, but not for the reason I thought. I wasn't angry because you had lied. I was angry because learning the truth made me realize how impossible this whole situation is. What situation? This, she gestured between them. Whatever this is between us, because there is something, isn't there? It's not just in my head? No, he said quietly. It's not in your head. But how can it work? You live in a world I can't even imagine. Your mother. My mother was wrong, Ethan interrupted, about everything. And if she made you feel unwelcome, I'm sorry. That wasn't her right. She wasn't wrong, though. We are from different worlds. So what? Do you think I care about any of that? He leaned forward in his wheelchair, his voice passionate for the first time since she had arrived. Do you think the money matters to me? The companies? The status? Any of it? Because it doesn't. It never has. But it's part of who you are. No, it's not. It's part of what I inherited. Part of what people expect from me. But it's not who I am. He reached for her hand hesitantly. Who I am is the person I've been with you these past weeks. The person who looks forward to seeing you every day, who feels stronger when you're there, who can imagine a future again because you helped me believe it was possible. Tears were flowing freely down Naomi's cheeks now. Ethan. I know the money complicates things. I know it makes people judge us, makes them assume things about your motivations or mine. But I also know that what I feel for you is real. More real than anything I've ever felt in my life. What do you feel for me? He was quiet for a moment, his thumb tracing across her knuckles. I love you, he said simply. I love your strength and your kindness. I love the way you see the best in people. I love that you made me feel human again when I thought that part of me was broken forever. He looked directly into her eyes. I love you, Naomi. Not because you work here, not because you helped with my therapy, but because of who you are when no one else is watching. I love you too, she whispered, the words tumbling out before she could stop them. I tried not to. I tried to convince myself it was just compassion or professional caring, but it's not. I love you. Ethan's face transformed, hope replacing the despair that had been there moments before. Then why does the money matter? Why does any of the rest of it matter? Because I'm scared. The admission came out in a rush. I'm scared that people will think I'm with you for what you can give me. I'm scared that I'll never fit into your world. I'm scared that someday you'll realize you could have anyone, and you'll wonder why you settled for a janitor from the wrong side of town. Look at me. His voice was gentle but firm. Look at me, Naomi. She met his eyes. I spent the first 29 years of my life surrounded by people who wanted something from me. Business deals, donations, introductions to other wealthy people, investments in their projects. Every relationship was transactional. Every friendship had an agenda. He cupped her face with his free hand. You're the first person who ever looked at me and saw just me. The first person who never asked for anything except for me to keep trying, keep fighting, keep hoping. Do you really think I would give that up? Do you really think I could find that anywhere else? But your family, your friends, will learn to accept it, or they're not really family and friends, are they? He smiled. Besides, you've already won over the most important person. Who? My mother. She called you this afternoon, didn't she? Naomi nodded. How did you know? Because she came to see me right after your coffee date. Told me I was an idiot if I let you get away. Said you were the best thing that had happened to me since the accident, and probably before it too. She said that? She also said that if I didn't fight for you, she was going to adopt you as her daughter and I'd have to see you at every family gathering for the rest of my life, knowing I'd let the love of my life slip away because I was too proud to beg. Naomi laughed through her tears. She didn't say that. She absolutely said that. My mother doesn't make empty threats. Ethan grew serious again. Naomi, I know this won't be easy. I know there will be people who judge us, who assume the worst about your motivations. I know there will be times when the differences in our backgrounds create problems we haven't even thought of yet. But I also know that I want to face those challenges with you. I want to build a life where your dreams matter as much as mine, where we support each other's goals and celebrate each other's victories. He paused. I want to learn to walk beside you, not just physically, but in every way that matters. What are you saying? I'm saying marry me. Naomi's eyes went wide. Ethan, I know it's crazy. I know we've known each other for less than 2 months. I know there are a million practical reasons why we should wait. He brought her hand to his lips and kissed her knuckles gently. But I also know that I don't want to spend another day wondering if you're going to disappear from my life again. I know that the only future I can imagine is one with you in it. Are you proposing to me in a hospital room while you're still in a wheelchair? Yes. Is that a problem? Naomi looked at this man who had changed her life in ways she was still discovering. This man who had been broken and scared and had somehow found the courage to love her anyway. This man who was offering her a future she had never dared to dream of. No, she said softly. That's not a problem at all. Is that a yes? That's a yes. Ethan's smile was brighter than any she had seen from him since the day they met. He pulled her down to kiss her, and for the first time since learning who he really was, she let herself believe that maybe, just maybe, they could make this work. There's one condition, she said when they broke apart. Anything. You have to start going to therapy again. Real therapy, not just going through the motions. If we're going to build a life together, I want you to be as strong as you can be. Deal. But I want you there. I'll always be there. Promise? I promise. 6 months later. The wedding was small, held in the garden of the rehabilitation center where they had met. Naomi wore a simple white dress that she had picked out herself, and Ethan stood at the altar using forearm crutches, his legs supporting most of his weight. It had been a long road to get there. Months of therapy, of arguments about wedding planning, of learning to navigate the complex dynamics of merging their very different worlds. But they had done it together, one day at a time, just like Naomi had promised that first night. Dr. Reeves officiated the ceremony, having gotten ordained online specifically for the occasion. Margaret sat in the front row, tears streaming down her face, next to Lena, who was serving, as Naomi's maid of honor. The couple has chosen to write their own vows, Dr. Reeves announced. Ethan went first, his voice steady and strong. Naomi, you taught me that walking isn't about your legs. It's about moving forward, one day at a time, with someone you love beside you. You taught me that strength isn't about what you can do alone, but what you're willing to do together. Most importantly, you taught me that love isn't about finding someone perfect. It's about finding someone who makes you want to be the best version of yourself. He paused, looking directly into her eyes. I promise to walk beside you through whatever comes. I promise to support your dreams as fiercely as you've supported mine. I promise to love you not because of who you are, but because of who we are together. And I promise that no matter how far I'm able to walk physically, my heart will always take its steps in rhythm with yours. Naomi wiped tears from her eyes before beginning her own vows. Ethan, when I first met you, you were sitting in the dark, afraid that you'd never walk again. I told you I would help you learn, and I thought I was talking about hope and healing. I didn't know I was also talking about love. She took his hands in hers. You taught me that courage isn't about not being scared. It's about asking for help when you need it. You taught me that my worth isn't measured by my job or my bank account, but by the love I'm capable of giving and receiving. You taught me that sometimes the best things in life come from the most unexpected places. Her voice grew stronger. I promise to love you in sickness and in health, but also in weakness and in strength. I promise to remind you of your worth when the world tries to convince you it's measured in dollars instead of kindness. I promise to walk beside you wherever this life takes us. And I promise that no matter what challenges we face, we'll face them together, one step at a time. When Dr. Reeves pronounced them husband and wife, Ethan leaned heavily on his crutches to kiss his bride. It wasn't the most graceful kiss in wedding history, but it was filled with more love and hope than either of them had ever imagined possible. As they turned to face their small gathering of family and friends, Naomi caught sight of a banner hanging from the garden arbor. The first step of forever. Did you plan that? She whispered to her new husband. My mother, he whispered back. She said every good love story needs a theme. They walked down the aisle together slowly, Ethan's progress steady but careful, Naomi's pace matched to his. Behind them, their guests threw rice and flower petals, celebrating not just their union, but the victory of love over fear, hope over despair, and the power of two people choosing to face the future as one. Later, at the small reception, Lena pulled Naomi aside. So, her cousin said with a grin, how does it feel to be married to a billionaire? Naomi looked across the room at her husband, who was laughing at something Dr. Reeves had said, his face bright with joy. It feels like being married to the man I love, she said simply. Everything else is just details. As the evening wound down, Ethan and Naomi found themselves alone in the garden where they had just pledged their lives to each other. The light strung through the trees cast a warm glow over the space, and music drifted softly from the reception. No regrets? Ethan asked, settling onto a bench and pulling her down beside him. None, she said firmly. You? Only one. Her heart skipped. What? I regret that it took a car accident and 2 months of being miserable to find you. I wish I had met you sooner when I was whole. Naomi cupped his face in her hands. Ethan Cole, you listen to me. You were never broken. Hurt, yes. Scared, absolutely. But never broken. And the man I fell in love with is exactly the man you were meant to be. Even in a wheelchair, even with crutches, even with all the uncertainty about how much I'll recover, especially with all of that. Because that's the man who needed my help. That's the man who was brave enough to ask for it. That's the man who taught me that love isn't about finding someone who doesn't need you. It's about finding someone who chooses you anyway. They sat together in comfortable silence, watching the stars appear in the darkening sky. Two people from different worlds who had found something worth fighting for, something worth believing in, something worth walking toward, one step at a time, together. Ready to go home, Mrs. Cole? Ethan asked eventually. Ready, Mr. Cole. He stood carefully, offering her his arm for support. She took it, not because he needed her help anymore, but because they both wanted to face whatever came next as a team. And as they walked slowly toward their future, Naomi remembered the promise she had made that first night in the darkness of his hospital room. I'll help you walk again. She had kept that promise in ways neither of them had imagined, and now they would keep walking together through whatever joys and challenges lay ahead for the rest of their lives. Behind them, the garden lights twinkled like stars, illuminating the place where two broken hearts had learned to heal together, and where love had proven that the most beautiful journeys begin with a single step of faith. The end.